Welcome to the truth. President Trump dropped the bombshell Thursday night. He delivered the news many of us have been waiting for. We're going to get into that today. Along with the death of Lindsey Graham, Ben Shapiro would vote for Netanyahu as president of the United States. And the shadow government is unmasked. We'll talk about all that and more. We also have Kari on today for talking about President Trump's address to the nation Thursday night. We also are going to talk to two of the most active activists on election integrity in the entire country. Bob Cheeley, the Atlanta lawyer who brought the case of Jeffrey Sotir and Purdue against the Fulton Board of Elections, and the former member of the State Elections Board, Dr. Janice Johnston, one of my favorite people. So we'll get into all of that and much more on The Truth today. Thank you for joining us. If you're listening to us on the radio, welcome. We'd love for you to also subscribe to our show if you want to. There's no pressure. It's up to you. But we come to you on the John Fredericks Media Network, up and down the East Coast, 10 cities, 26 AM and FM radio stations. We also come to you on cdm.press, who distributes our feed across their social media platforms. They've also got 13 digital platforms of their own. They specialize in a novel concept, the truth. We also stream live on Getter, Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, and Instagram. Come join us on one of those platforms. Getter may be my favorite. We're over 5,000 subscribers now. We want 100,000, then we will have really arrived. The only way that's going to happen is for you radio listeners to just go over to getter.com, gettr.com, hit the live button. It's right there in front of you. And then search in the search bar for John Gordon Truth. It'll pop up. You can hit the subscribe button. Like us if you do. Share with your friends if you think we have something worth listening to or passing on. And it doesn't cost anything except a bit of your time. You can do the same thing on Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X. And we would appreciate it if you would. It's the only way we're going to get larger audiences, which is the only way we're going to get more fabulous guests like we have on today. So Lindsey Graham, a fixture in the United States Senate for many, many years, and someone that I personally liked, but also had some significant questions about, passed away last Saturday night, a week ago tonight, after what their family says was a brief illness. I mean, from what I can tell, the illness was less than 24 hours. That certainly seems to be the indication that we've gotten. Not all conservatives liked Lindsey Graham, so I liked Lindsey Graham with an asterisk. There were certain things that I did not relish about Lindsey Graham. I mean, we're just wired differently. We have had different values. And here's where I'm coming from. Roll tape one.
So I just want to say I feel good about the Republican Party. I feel good about where we're going as a nation. We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes. Trump is my favorite president. We've run out of bombs. We didn't run out of bombs in World War II.
Can you play that part of that clip again there, Sir Anthony?
We're killing all the right people and we're cutting your taxes.
All right. We're killing all the right people and he's smiling? I don't like it. I've been clear. That's normalizing the problem that we're having around the globe. We're killing all the right people. Code word, we're assassinating all the right people. I mean, before we start going around and looking at actors, we better get our own damn house in order. I've been very clear. Plucking people out of the ocean who are suspected drug runners is not okay with me. It's murder. We have laws. If they're suspected of drug running and they're in international waters, send the Coast Guard, send the Navy, pluck them out of the water, put them in handcuffs, take them before a tribunal, a military court of tribunal or an international court, and try them. And then sentence them based on the law. But we can't do this. We just cannot do this. And the thing there's so much about Lindsey Graham that I liked. And there's so much about Donald Trump that I absolutely love. But that component, smirking while we're talking about killing drug runners, it's not cool. I think it should be reserved for the most egregious, blatant, unqualified cases. But it's going to get us in trouble. It's already getting us in trouble. Now, some people are questioning the death of Lindsey Graham. I'm personally suspect. Here's where I'm coming from. Roll tape 2.
Do you still stand by your call to have Putin be assassinated? Do you still stand by your call?
Yeah, I hope he'll be taken out one way or the other. I don't care how they take him out. I don't care if we send him to The Hague and try him. I just want him to go. Yes, I'm on record. Please understand, Senator Lindsey Graham, if John McCain were here, he'd be saying the same thing, I think. It's time for him to go. He's a war criminal. I wish somebody had taken Hitler out in the 30s. So yes, that Vladimir Putin is not a legitimate leader. He is a war criminal. He needs to be dealt with by the Russian people. I'm not asking to invade Russia to take him out. I'm not asking to send American ground forces in Ukraine to fight the Russian army. I am asking the Russian people to rise up and end this reign of terror for you and the world at large.
Well, he sort of backtracked on his statement. But look, Lindsey Graham for 10 years has called for the political assassination of Vladimir Putin. Now, just think about it. How coincidental is it that the number one person in America that is on after Putin, and we know that Putin kills people. We know that he will kill his rivals. And so live by the sword, die by the sword. Think about it. Lindsey Graham goes to the Ukraine. I think he spent, 2 or 3 days there, Anthony? He toured a drone factory, and 3 days later it was blown up. Is that right, Anthony? Yeah. And so should we not be open to the possibility that the Russians killed Lindsey Graham? I am open to receiving information about it. I suspect, look, people just don't kill over dead. Yes, it happens. The last person I can remember that it happened to was Nelson Rockefeller. There's a bigger story that goes along with that. If for people of my generation, you probably remember it. I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to leave it at that. But there was an explanation for why he had a heart attack. He was exercising. He was engaged in strenuous exercise with his secretary. I said I wasn't going there. Uh-oh. So and while they were exercising, he died. There is a story there that had the ring of truth. It was a plausible explanation. But to say that Lindsey Graham went to the Ukraine where he spent 3 or 4 days and came home and his heart exploded that night, it doesn't ring true to me unless there was nefarious activity. Now, I could be wrong. And I hate spreading rumors, unfounded rumors. I have no evidence for that. But what the evidence that we do have is that he hated Putin. He called for his political assassination, not once, not twice, not 3 or 4 times, multiple times over a decade. And so now he gets within his reach. And what happens? So it is a working theory that I am willing to consider. And I will continue to look for information to prove or disprove it. I would love to disprove it. Just like I would love to disprove that the Soviet Union killed Larry McDonald. It's kind of similar, albeit different. Do you remember Larry McDonald? He was a congressman from Georgia, Marietta, in fact. He had the district that Newt Gingrich ultimately ended up running for Congress from, in Marietta, Georgia. And Larry McDonald was on a 747, a commercial airliner, to the Far East, and it allegedly entered Soviet airspace. That I don't know whether that was proven or disproven. The fact of the matter is, even if it's true that the 747 entered the Soviet Union airspace, it seemed like a pretty stiff penalty to have paid, because 269 people aboard that flight lost their lives. And I had lunch one day with one of the most prominent public figures in America, and we had a lunch that was supposed to be 45 minutes or an hour that lasted 2.5 hours. And during the course of the conversation, I said, can you believe that the Soviets shot down the 747 carrying Larry McDonald? I said, nobody would ever be that vicious that they would bring down a whole airplane. And why is this significant? Because Larry McDonald, if you had to pick the number one anti-communist, number one Soviet Union hater, possibly in the world, you would track straight to Larry McDonald. If he wasn't number one, he was number 2 or 3. He was most assuredly in the top 10. He was probably the most outspoken member of Congress who hated the Soviets. So how convenient, how at the worst, at the best, I should say, how ironic that on a airplane, he would be shot down by the Soviets. So, I don't know that I'd ever be good at serving in political office. I don't know that I would ever be able to be the commander in chief. Call me weak. I don't care. I'm strong enough to tell you that I think political assassinations out of when we're not in a absolute war is wrong. And I've said that about the war with Iran. Trump acts all offended that they want to kill him, that he's number one on their hit list. Well, how would we react? How would we react if Iran came into the United States and killed our president, vice president, secretary of state, secretary of war, 2 or 3 levels of our government? Wouldn't we be screaming and shouting retaliation? We would definitely want to bomb the hell out of them, right? Well, that's where the miscalculation comes in. You see, I think without evidence, all I do is kind of add up 2 plus 2 and see if it equals 4. But we bombed the hell out of Iran. We killed 2 and 3 layers of their government leaders. What do we expect them to do? Well, I think that the CIA thought that they could go in and sow discontent, and that the Iranian people would say, thank you, Jesus. Well, not Jesus. They would not say that. Some of them would. But thank you, Allah, or whoever. I don't know. let's don't go there. But they thought whoever the hell they are, the people who probably badgered Trump to the point where he agreed to go into Iran against the advice of his vice president, against the advice of Charlie Kirk. And now we've got a war that we can't get rid of. And I said last week, I'll repeat it again. I think it bears repeating. They've got Trump by the you-know-what. They've got him backed into a corner. They are portraying him as weak because he's got the midterms looming. He desperately needs this war to be over. He thought it would play out differently, I believe. I think he thought that it would turn out just like Venezuela. We would go in there, we'd get rid of the leadership, and voila, the Iranian people would celebrate us in the streets. Wrong. They're not. They're chanting death to America. And their leadership is saying, kill Trump. I want and pray for the president's safety every day of my life. I don't think I've ever witnessed a more courageous person and a more patriotic person than Donald Trump. I've certainly never met one. And I do know President Trump. And I admire him, I respect him, but that doesn't make him perfect. But I've also been very clear. Let me be sure that you don't call me hypocrite, because I've been very clear that I support his decision to go into Iran. And I've been very clear why. And it does not solely relate to the nuclear weapons. It starts in 1978 when they took our embassy and held 444 of our diplomats and embassy employees hostage and commandeered our embassy for 2 years, almost 2 years, a year and a half. And then they've killed thousands of American servicemen and women by state sponsoring terrorism throughout the universe, the globe. Thousands they've killed of our servicemen and women. So live by the sword, die by the sword. My beef is not that we went into Iran. My beef is that we assassinated its leaders. It's not according to international law, and it is begging for blowback, retaliation, animosity. I think it could have been done differently. But, you know, he threw down with Netanyahu. And Israel is savage. They are the OG. They take no prisoners. Now, some people applaud that. Others decry it. I think they've gone too far in Gaza. I think that it borderlines committing genocide. Don't say I must be an anti-Semite, because that's not true. But I am for humanity, and I am for morality, and I am for self-discipline, and I am for putting limits on the power that we have. Just because we have military might doesn't mean we have to use it. We can use it. We should use it. We should have used it in Iran. But we should put a governor on it. There is a limit to how much we should use it. And did we accomplish anything by taking the supreme leader out of Iran? No, we got his son, who many people say is more radical than he was. And now we blew his legs off. So you think he's going to try and play nice with the U.S.? I would go about it differently. That's why you should have elected me president. Why you should elect me president. I would go about it differently. I would impose the sanctions, just like we did. I would blockade the Straits of Hormuz for Iranian oil tankers, or for any oil tankers pulling out of Iranian harbors carrying oil from Iran. I just shut it down. I think Trump's done a good job of that. But we could go further. Here's what I would do if I were emperor, king, or whatever for a day. I would encourage every producer in the world of petroleum to increase their production 1%, 2%. I don't think it would be hard. We could start. I think we already have. We could encourage every producer of oil to increase their output by 2 or 3%, 1, 2 or 3%. I don't know. I haven't done the math. I know Iran produces 20% of the world's oil. But you get every other producer to increase their production 1 or 2% and not and join hands with the communities of the world who have suffered from terrorism that Iran has sponsored, who are fearful of them developing a nuclear weapon. They become obsolete overnight. We hit them where it hurts and no blood is drawn. Yeah, would it work? I don't know. If the threat of if the nuclear threat was so imminent, then bomb the hell out of the nuclear facilities and take out whatever you need to neutralize the nuclear threat. But this savagery that I see being played out all around the world, President Trump himself said that being the head of a country is the most dangerous job in the world. More dangerous than a race car driver, more dangerous than, what else did he cite? Some other dangerous job. What, a boxer maybe? I don't know. I can't remember what it was. It was a 0.1%. Oh, a bullfighter. Good call, Anthony. I think that was it. 0.1% of the population dies from bullfighting or car racing. Two pretty dangerous jobs. 5% of the world leaders die from assassination. And you know what it becomes? This is my point. And it's not because I'm weak. It's because I'm moral. And I don't mean that to sound self-serving and all righteous on you. It just bothers me. It really disturbs me that we go around killing people and that Lindsey Graham could say it so with a smile on his face, so flippantly. Yeah, we're lowering taxes and we're killing all the right people. I don't mean to speak ill of the departed, but I'm sorry. I am not down with that concept. Why? Because it is a horrible, horrible long-term strategy, because it becomes a contest between the Hatfields and the McCoys. And we know how that ended up. So moral people need to be put in charge as our leaders. And I'm sorry, when you go around killing people willy-nilly and then smirking about it, don't expect me to sit here and cheer you on. I don't care who you are. In times of war, it's a cost of war. In times of people like Soleimani, the Iranian who was the expert on car bombings and roadside hand grenades, whatever you call them, IUDs, is that what it is? Oh, God, I don't know. I think I mixed metaphors. What do you call those things that they lay on the road, you run over them, it blows up your car? He was the master of it. I think I mixed a metaphor. But anyway, I wasn't trying to be funny. Maybe stupid, but Anyway, you get the point I'm trying to make. I mean, you know, somebody that is that egregious but you know, we could have maybe gone in there and plucked him out and taken him to a international court and tried him. That would have been my preference, frankly. That really would have been my preference. And Lindsey Graham hinted or talked about that with Putin. I mean, at first he was like, you know, kill him. And then he sort of backtracked and said, well, you know, take him to The Hague and try him. I'd be perfectly fine with that. I think he is murderous. I don't know that he deserves that kind of humane treatment. But we have to. Otherwise, it's just who can kill who first. And where does that get us as a world community? I don't know. Maybe I'm idealistic. Maybe I'm naive. But I think that's what we should have done. I know that's what we should have done with the drug runners. I'm just not down with that. And I don't think it was because they were drug runners. That was the pretext. I think it was just to set a narrative in place that would allow people to be okay with plucking Maduro out of Venezuela. I was okay with plucking Maduro out of Venezuela. That's what I'm saying we should do. Now that is justice. That is, I think, justified. And that's what I would prefer to see us do, because somehow, you know, the world is becoming smaller and smaller. It is becoming more and more connected. I mean, looking behind the Iron Curtain, going to the Soviet Union when I was a kid was absolutely foreboding. Nobody would think about doing that. Very few people. Diplomats, people that were on some sort of a mission, maybe. Maybe if you were a U.S. oligarch, you would go there to transact business, but very, very few and far between. Until it opened up. But open up indeed it did. And many American businesses are prominently doing business in Russia. I know a few people personally that have done a lot of business in Russia. And I'm like, are you crazy? I don't even want to visit there, let alone do business with them, for fear of that, like that book called Red Signal. If you haven't read it, it's, or Red Notice, I think. It's a great read, a suspense thriller based on a true story of someone that was doing business in Russia and got on the wrong side of the oligarchs, people in government, and they wanted to kill him. That's what I'm saying. It becomes a vicious circle, and that we've got to stop it. So people are all giddy about the possibility that John Fetterman may change parties. Now, there are a lot of things I like about John Fetterman. I particularly like his willingness his willingness to speak truth. And just so few politicians in either party are willing to do that. More in the Republican Party, frankly. I mean, John Kennedy comes to mind. Thomas Massey comes to mind. That other, that congressman from Tennessee, what's his name? Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she speaks truth to power. But Fetterman had this to say on the subject of Israel.
Based on your comments yesterday, they got a lot of attention. You said you would leave.
Which is weird, though, Manu, because I've said that before publicly, even on an interview on Fox. So this is not new news.
That you would leave the Democratic Party if it turns anti-Israel?
Well, we've been speaking for a long time. I've always expressed my dismay the way the Democratic Party continues to turn their back on Israel. So I've said that publicly, like that's my red line. If Democratic Party becomes official anti-Israel, then that's when I would force me out.
So if Fetterman's going to become a Republican, he's going to draw a red line in the sand and say that you cannot withdraw support from Israel. For the record, I don't personally want us to withdraw support from Israel, but I do want to get it in line. We give $3 billion a year in absolute foreign aid. We spend another $30 billion on military defense of Israel and our position in Israel to secure that part of the world. And then we give another $500 million for munitions. And so, you know, it is my considered belief that our expenditures in Israel are disproportionate to what we're spending around the globe. Why are we so loyal and determined to favor Israel when they are effectively a socialist state? You can pretty much get everything you want or need for free in Israel. Free education, just like the United States. Free pensions, free health care. A lot of stuff is for free. Good for them. That's a policy that they can adopt, no problem. But why are we subsidizing it? That's where I trail off. I think there needs to be some rationalization relative to not the support of Israel, but rather the level of support. And we're finding that China's not the only one, and we'll talk about that in a bit, that have tried to shape public opinion inside the United States. Israel, Netanyahu, overtly said we've got to figure out how to better message for young people in America by utilizing TikTok, Facebook, and other social media platforms. He said it. I'm not down with that. It is not your place to come into the United States and try and inject into our young people's psyche. That is the job of our leadership, our policymakers, our opinion leaders, our journalists. Okay, we'll strike that except for the truth and a few others. Certainly strike ABC and NBC, who refused to cover President Trump's address to the nation Thursday night. I'll talk about that some more in a minute. But look, the influence of Israel in this country, I'm sorry. And don't call me an anti-Semite unless you want to meet me in the front yard, and we'll settle it there. Because I'm not going to allow that. But saying that there needs to be fairness and balance and reason is legit. And to point out the fact that less than 2% of the American population is Jewish, yet they have 35% of the wealth, no resentment there. They've earned it. They're smart. They're hard workers. They're good business people. But then to extend that to 85% of the media, and that we know that the media does not tell the truth, that the media is going to adopt whatever narrative I think that they're paid to do. But the fact that Jews own 85% of America, what narrative do you suspect that their media outlets are going to advance? That's the problem that I've got. You want to go to Speaker's Corner in London and stand up on a soapbox and pontificate, have at it. But if you're going to adopt a narrative to advance your political beliefs and do it through news programming in the United States of America on our airwaves that the federal government actually owns, that we loan to these media companies for which they pay nothing, and you're going to drive your political agendas through them, I'm sorry. I'm not down with that. I think it's just materially wrong. I think it's gamed the system. And it deprives the American people from fair, accurate, the free flow of information, which is what I am in favor of. Then let the policymakers decide. And I'm fine with that, as long as it's based on the name of this show. Truth. Not spin. Not spin, especially when it's being perpetuated by a foreign country, even our allies. Okay, so it's our old buddy Ben Shapiro. I would gladly waive the born in USA requirement for presidency for Bibi Netanyahu. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Now, Ben Shapiro, he can move the needle. He's got a big audience. So I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not anti-England. I'm not anti-France. I'm not anti-Italy. I'm not anti-Japan. I'm not anti-South Korea. I'm not anti any of our allies. And I'm not really anti a lot of our, not enemies, but people that are not, do not have free democracies. I mean, I will indulge them. I mean, I think that, you know, if a country's people want to be ruled by communists, let them have at it. Who are we to tell a foreign country what their form of government should be? But we sure as hell do go in there and try and tell people how to think. So that's okay. We're advancing democracy. Well, there's merit in that. But can we talk out of both sides of our mouth? Is that okay for us to do it? But be resentful and draw a red line that we don't want foreign countries to come into the United States and try and influence our young people? I think it's fine for people inside the United States to express their political beliefs. I just don't think it's acceptable when it's state-sponsored. That's my paradigm. All right. Well, President Trump or night before last told us exactly what we suspected. Actually, what I have believed since 2020, when I chased down and found Bob Cheeley in Atlanta, who was litigating a case against Fulton Board of Elections, because I was so upset, so demoralized, so traumatized by what was obviously a stolen election based on my observations and many, many, many others, including President Trump's. But he addressed the nation Thursday night. As I said, ABC and NBC wouldn't carry it. I mean, Trump says revoke their FCC licenses. That would not bother me at all. I mean, I just don't remember a time that a national network has refused to carry an address by the nation's leader. I'm sure it's happened, and it was probably happened to Trump, but I don't remember them doing that to any other president of our country. It is highly offensive to me. It is beyond offensive to me. You have the power. We have the power. Do not patronize those media outlets. and warn your family and friends and parishioners and neighbors to do the same. Just turn them off. That is the biggest weapon we've got. That's the biggest weapon we've got. Just cut them off at the knees. That would be reduce their viewership so nobody wants to advertise with them. They go out of business. That's the American way. That's what I'm advocating that we do with Iran. Just let them go out of business. Don't bomb them into oblivion. Starve them into oblivion. And I don't mean cut off their food supply. I mean cut off their market for oil. They become irrelevant overnight. They won't be able to afford to buy weapons and sponsor terrorism because they will be scrambling to feed themselves. That works. That works for me. No blood is shed. All right, so here's what President Trump had to say Thursday night.
As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems, dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act.
So, for now 6 years, I have believed, and for 4 years I've been telling you, something very subversive is at work in our country. I've been sending out the signal about China, haven't I? I've had Peter Schweitzer on the show twice, all pointing the finger at China. We've seen riots in Seattle, in Portland, in Los Angeles, Dallas, Atlanta, D.C., New York, Chicago. And the signs all look the same. And I was thinking, who's behind it? George Soros was everybody's first pick, and maybe he still is one of the co-conspirators. But now it's pretty obvious that it was China. I've read the CIA report. I've started to read it. It's like 200 pages long, and it's full of acronyms. Oh, my God. I've got to stop every third sentence to ask Grok what this acronym or that acronym is. It's very tedious. But now it becomes very apparent that our instincts were correct, that it has been China all along, and working in conjunction with people inside our own government, notably the CIA and the FBI. And you have this FBI agent demonstrably stating that the FBI is basically becoming a shadow government. It's extra constitutional. It is unlawful. It is evil. It is criminal. I think it is treasonous. And that's what I am demanding. Clapper, Comey, Brennan, I'm sorry, Christopher Wray, they have behaved in treasonous manners. No doubt Merrick Garland, Mayorkas, they're all part of the deep state shadow government. Maybe even Bill Barr, who told people that they had looked at the election allegations of election fraud in Pennsylvania. A very high-level Department of Justice employee, official, told me that he personally went to Barr, told him about what he saw. Barr said that they've looked and can find nothing. The field office in Pennsylvania where it was directed said they had never heard from Bill Barr. No such thing had occurred. Lied. Deep state. Anarchist. They need to pay and pay dearly. We don't need to pluck some low-level bureaucrat out of the government, set them up to be the scapegoat and say, see, we've done our job. No, you go after Brennan, you go after Comey, you go after Clapper, you go after Christopher Wray and Mayorkas and Merrick Garland, and yes, Obama and Clinton. They put this country through hell. They did not act lawfully. They did not follow our Constitution. Obama and Clinton knew that Russia was a fake, and they drugged this country through it for 3 years at a cost of $50 million. But that's the direct cost. Nobody knows the indirect cost because it prevented Trump from being able to advance his agenda, which the American people elected him to do. That's subversion. That's not a slap on the wrist. The American people demand accountability, and I don't think we've heard the end of it yet, folks. I think this is the tip of the spear. And I've been telling you. I have been telling you. And I'm not trying to say, oh, look at me, how smart I am. It's just that I study this stuff every day of my life. And I talk to people, and I interview people, and I read, and I collect, and synthesize. God, get me some water. All this information, aggregate it, and then form conclusions. And the conclusion that I've drawn for the last 3 years that this federal government is rotten to its core, and the core is the CIA and the FBI and the NSA, the alphabet agencies, and the people that have intentionally and consciously aligned themselves with those corrupt agencies, knowing full well that they were being corrupt along with them. And hell needs to be paid. And that's the only way to stop it. It's the only way to stop it. Nick Shirley's doing his part, stopping fraud. Elon Musk did his best to stop fraud. But we're not talking about fraud anymore. We're talking about treason. We're talking about undermining the pillar of our very republic, which is your franchise. If we do not have a vote, we do not have a republic and no hope for democracy. But the Democrats don't mind that. That's what they want, and they're telling you to your face every single day that they don't want a democracy. They want a ruling class as long as it is them, and then they will just steal us blind. I'm sick of it. And when they can't get their way, they cheat and they steal. Just like they did with Spencer Pratt in LA. We're watching it happen in real time. It's been 6 weeks, taken 6 weeks to count the ballots. And all the absentee ballots went to the Democrats, not to the Democrats, to a Democrat, the number 3 person on the ticket. Come on. It's so obvious. When is justice going to prevail? When are we going to get accountability? I believe we are in the process of. I told you that Trump is deconstructing the deep state, didn't I? I just want you to listen to me. I don't say that to tell you how smart I am. I tell you that because I want you to listen and trust and believe. Because I think I know what I'm talking about. It was Russia was chapter 1 of this book entitled Deconstructing the Deep State by Donald John Trump. And Tulsi Gabbard gave us the receipts. And then I said, I think chapter 2 is going to be the unraveling the 2020 election. And now we're seeing it. Donald Trump has declassified all the CIA files and the FBI files, and better yet, they found the smoking gun. You know, we never found the smoking gun with JFK. The evidence is the circumstantial evidence is so voluminous and overwhelming that we don't need the smoking gun unless you're just a blundering idiot or in denial or don't want to get off the golf course. That's fine. But I'm just saying, all of our audience know what happened in November 22nd, 1963. And I think that was the beginning of our downfall. Our own government, the same people. Oh, the names are changed. But the MOs are the same. Are destroying this country. A lot of them are from Yale and Princeton and Harvard because they think they're smarter than you. They think that they should be able to be in control and make the decisions for this country. It's not what the founders wrote. It's not the documents that we agreed on. So, chapter 2, I think, is just unfolding. The first revelation, which I am surprised to hear, but not shocked, and I'm not all that surprised. I just didn't know that we were going to find the smoking gun. That was the thought I was trying to recall. That's where I started all that. The smoking gun. We found it. And President Trump says that just shows you how incompetent these people are. And I believe that. The smoking guns were in burn bags, stuffed into rooms in the FBI headquarters that somebody didn't do their job. Incompetence and laziness. And so we come along and right thinking people found them, opened them up and discovered, here's the evidence. Here is the evidence, proof positive, that China was dramatically involved in the 2020 election and its outcome. And they were aided and abetted by the CIA, the FBI, that lady who said, we are a shadow government. Boy, if that isn't a statement against interest, I've never heard of one. How is she going to walk that back? Just give her what she deserves. A fair trial. Present all the evidence. Let the facts lead us to the conclusions. She deserves a fair trial. I mean, all of us have made statements that we regret. Maybe she was just tired and cranky, and maybe she was trying to impress somebody and made that statement. But unfortunately, she said what the rest of us believe. So the evidence needs to all come out. I think we're going to find out. The one thing I was disappointed in on Thursday night. Okay, I'm recording this on Friday. I keep saying last night. We're the truth. Yes, it was Thursday night, but for me, it was last night. All right. So I can say last night now, and you'll know that I'm recording this Friday before the Saturday broadcast. He talked about Michigan. He talked about the voter rolls. I think that is just what the engines used to do. They used to send up smoke, you know. That's how they communicated. What do you call it? Smoke signals? Is that what it was? Smoke signals. I think it's a smoke signal. I think that's just the first of what's to come. Today, I hope you'll stay with us. I think you're going to be riveted by what Bob Cheeley, the lawyer in Georgia that brought the case against the Fulton Board of Elections, we got into the weeds. We got into the weeds with him and Dr. Janice Johnston. You're going to want to hear that interview. And then we went down even further into the rabbit hole with Kari Lake, who is one of my all-time heroes. She has fought the good fight. And you know what? She has not lost her composure. She didn't get all wild and animated like I do. She used to. She's really toned it down, and now she speaks much more calmly, intellectually, and less emotionally. But this stuff gets under my skin. I mean, I can't help it. I guess I can practice self-control. Hey, do you want me to stop being animated and raising my voice? If you do, write me at johngordontruth@gmail.com. I want to know what you think I should do. Part of it is me trying to get you excited and motivated to get off the sofa and join me in speaking from the rooftops, because that's what we've got to do now. But I think what we're going to find out, I keep going down these side branches. All right, back to the main street. I think what we're going to find out is that Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, I left out one. Did I say Wisconsin? Who did I leave out? Minnesota? Yeah, Minnesota. They're your swing states. I think we're going to find out they were stolen. And I think we're going to find out that they were stolen all using the same MO. I already know that. I already have reached that conclusion for myself. But the American people have got to hear it. And they're not going to make that conclusion just based on what John Gordon has told them. They should, but they're not going to. They have to have an official government proof. It's bizarre. People today rely on the Warren Commission, and it was a complete fictitious work. But it's so easy. Well, that's what the government told us, so it has to be true. Okay, well, we found the damn burn bags. So now the government is going to prove to you that what we've been telling you for 6 years is true. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that You got to go to that much effort, and it takes that much time to get to the truth. But at least it's 6 years and not 63 years. Thanks probably to the internet, because were it not for the internet and John Fredericks and CDM Press, I would not probably have this platform, nor would Dan Bongino and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens and all the others, even Ben Shapiro, who I've decided I just really I really dislike. I just do not like that guy. So anyway, now the information will all come out. I think that I have been advocating, and you know this, for a cleansing in America. How many times have I said it? We need a cleansing in America, and the best disinfectant is sunshine, i.e., the truth. And that is the truth. Thank you for joining us today. I am excited. I'm optimistic. I am cautious to temper my expectations, because we've come very close before. But when this chapter of the book is done, I want to move on to political assassinations in this country. We want the facts. We want the truth from JFK, RFK, MLK, Donald J. Trump attempted assassination, Charlie Kirk's assassination. It all has to come out. And then we've got a chance. And then we've got a chance. We get the truth. We shine a light. We hold the people accountable. And that we reform all levels of government and our own approach to difficult problems. And we eliminate murder, political assassination as part of the solution, except for the most extreme of the extreme cases. But when Lindsey Graham stands up on a world stage and says to kill Putin, it does irreparable harm. It legitimizes the illegitimate. When Donald Trump, sorry, Mr. President, I'm sorry, I really am. I don't mean to be disparaging, because I love you and I respect you and I appreciate you. But you got to stop killing people. It sets up a vicious cycle of getting even. It can't go on. We've got to stand for something bigger and greater. And I urge all of us to do that. We cannot legitimize murder and political assassination. It could lead to the end of humanity, in my opinion. I think it is a very slippery slope. And you know, all you got to do is assassinate the wrong person, exercise the generals and their military, and the next thing you know, we're in a full-fledged world war and nuclear is on the table. It is very dangerous. Use the other tools in our arsenal. You want to fight around? I'm all in favor of it. Cut off their blood supply. That's their oil. All right. So today's broadcast is brought to you by Bogey's Beef. It's delicious. It's nutritious. And best of all, no dishes. Bogey's Beef Jerky. Premium craft beef jerky that's taken off at some of the most prominent golf courses and resorts around the U.S. of A. Made for the turn, the road, or wherever you need a bold, protein-packed snack. Bogey's delivers that rich flavor and that perfect chew every time. From smoky heat to Pineapple Express, there's a flavor for every kind of player. You can find them on the web. Just search for Bogey's Beef. Bogey's Beef Jerky. You can find it and order some online. Use the promo code TRUTH, and they'll even throw you a little discount along with it. We're also brought to you by Masculine Man Essentials. If you're a looks maxer, it's not good enough to look good. You got to smell good too. And that's where Masculine Man Essentials comes to the party. And Nessa's Hemp. Nessa has developed a company from the ground up called Nessa's Hemp, delivering healing in a little jar called hemp. And we'll talk more about all of our sponsors in a bit. But right now, let's get to our first interview. Let me just remind you that we're coming to you on the John Fredericks Media Network, cdm.press, and Getter, Rumble, YouTube, Instagram, and X. Please think about, if you would, going to those sites and maybe just subscribing to our social media platform. Doesn't cost you anything, but it really does help us a lot. It will help us get more guests, more advertisers. All the money we get, which ain't much, goes right back into the broadcast. So with that, I wish you a good rest of your weekend. But first, we got two great interviews to get to. Roll it. It is my honor and privilege to welcome to The Truth an American hero. She's certainly one of my heroes, Kari Lake. She's a journalist. She ran for governor of Arizona as well as the U.S. Senate. I think she was cheated and robbed. What do you think, Kari?
Well, I've been on the record as saying yes, and I've seen all the mashugana happening behind the scenes, as I know you have in our elections. And so, yes, I would agree with you on that. But, sometimes you wonder what your purpose is, and maybe it is to alert the public that there's problems in our election. And you and I have known it, and hundreds of millions of Americans have known our elections are not being run properly, and that's an understatement. And last night, thanks to our great president, we are now seeing that there was a lot more behind this, and our foreign adversaries like the CCP and China have been meddling in our elections in a very, very serious way.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that has been in the back of my mind for a long time. And I did not know specifically where China was meddling in our nation. But if you accept Trump's recitation of the facts, and I've got how long is this? 250, 300 page document straight out of the files of the CIA. We now know, we have definitive truth that China did meddle in very material ways in the 2020 election. What I want to know is, where else are they meddling? I have said on this program for 4 years that I feel that something very subversive is at work inside the borders of our country. And you look at the riots that we had all across the country in Portland and Dallas and Atlanta and DC and New York, and the signs were all pre-packaged and they were identical. They were not organic. They were staged. And I just wonder if we're going to find out that China has actually been trying to rip this country apart at the seams, which is my suspicion. That is my hypothesis. Now, we just need the evidence to prove or disprove it, and I'm open to either.
I think you got some of that evidence last night, and I know you probably haven't looked through all of the information, but I looked through some of it, and I've been keeping up, trying to get through as much of it as possible. And in those CIA documents, there is discussion of tearing this country apart, using things like BLM riots, other types of discord among Americans, to have Americans fighting Americans. I saw one document that talked about that. I mean, this for many of us who have been sounding the alarm that our elections are run like are phony and they're run like theater. It's been vindication for us. We've been called election deniers ever since the stolen election in 2020. And I just saw something this morning that the CCP and China were meddling in the voter rolls for the 22 election, which was the election that I ran in. They were still working and meddling to what it looks like create ballots for lines on voter rolls. All these people on the voter rolls that shouldn't be there. They're dead. They're gone. They never existed. They were here illegally for a myriad of reasons. A name ended up on a voter roll, but that person is not either around or a legal voter, but a ballot gets attached to it. China, we know, we've got a lot of illegal immigrants from China. We remember when not too long ago, we found out that the CCP was running their own investigation agencies and police agencies in some of our major cities, having kind of a shadow Chinese CCP government and bureaucracy running right out of the United States. I'm sure your viewers remember that.
We talked about it extensively. And what about when they floated a spy balloon over our country? Our defense, NORAD, watched the balloon traverse the Pacific Ocean, fly up over Canada, and then dip down into the United States and hover over our most secret military installations and traversed our country for a week. And then the courageous, illegitimate president at the time, Joe Biden, had the courage to shoot it down over the Atlantic after the mission was completed. And then we find out that he had taken $3 million from a company linked to the CCP.
Well, and that's the main issue here, is that the CIA and people working inside of it were keeping pertinent information that was very important to the American people and to the president at the time, who was Donald Trump, keeping information from him, intentionally manipulating the reports he was receiving, his intelligence reports, to omit this information, to allow China to continue to thwart our elections and press their thumb, their massive thumb on the scale for Joe Biden, who you just mentioned, we now know had taken millions of dollars, his family, from the Chinese government, from the CCP. It's nothing short of treasonous, in my opinion. But the most important thing is that we sort our elections out and get them to where we can have faith in them once again. And this is not I've always said this. I have always said this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. This is an American issue. For the sovereignty of our nation, we have to get this sorted out. People have said to me, "Oh, the Democrats stole your election." And I say, no, it was actually a mix. The people behind this was a mix of people from various parties. But I will tell you one thing. I don't know what party all of them were from. They don't love America. If you are taking part in any sort of maladministration, theft or fraud when it comes to our elections, you cannot possibly love this country.
Well, you touched on the word that I was just thinking about when you were talking about the very bad acts that have occurred. And I think that we've got people inside our government, the CIA, the FBI, who are actually engaged in treasonous activity. I mean, when you have a lady that President Trump cited last night that consciously wrote that she is part of a shadow government, if that's not treason, I don't know what is. And I think that leads to the next question. When are we going to see real, and I mean real, accountability?
I don't have the answer to that, but I do know that this information coming out and the president mentioning that it needs to be looked at further by the DOJ. We saw, John, the redacted documents that were released last night. There's a lot of redactions in there.
Oh, I saw them.
Redactions are not there for the DOJ and investigators to look at. They know what was redacted. And if you've been involved in any of the shady dealings in our elections, those redactions should keep you up at night and scare the hell out of you.
You've seen the unredacted versions?
No, I have not. But the DOJ has. And there's a reason things are being redacted. And I believe, and I don't have information, but I believe it's because it's information that they need to have prosecutions on these cases and to bring indictments forward. Something has to happen. I think we have the president in place with the will to do something to truly save our country. The president has done so much when it comes to our economy, when it comes to our border. That thing is sealed tight right now. When it comes to the economy, we just saw the latest inflation numbers. They're going down again. We're watching as he's rebuilding our economy. Our 401ks are growing. The prices are coming down. I know some people are saying they're not coming down enough, but listen, when you compare prices under Joe Biden to now, they have come down. The president's working with the largest tax cut he's ever given to the middle class. No tax on tips. We're watching manufacturing come back. He's done so much to save our country. I know this president is not going to leave the most important piece out of this. He's not going to do all of this and then leave elections to be run like third world countries, like theater. He's not going to do that. And so I believe we will see some action on this. It takes a while to build cases. And I think this case is built and probably nearly complete.
Will Clapper, Comey, and Brennan go down?
I pray.
Will Obama and Clinton go down?
Well, let's get through what, let's let the DOJ take care of this. I feel very confident that Todd Blanche and team are working hard, but I just want the people who are guilty to go down. And I want people who are guilty, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, because again, this has been a concerted effort to pit Americans against Americans. And I hate what it's done to our country. I hate that family members aren't talking to one another anymore because they've been torn apart by what they think is a political divide. And it really, as we're seeing last night, has been orchestrated in part by the Chinese communist regime. And it's been an effort to tear America apart at the seams. And by God, that almost happened. If not for President Trump coming in, this country would be gone by now. And now we have the chance to mend it up, to take those seams that are torn, bring them back together, sew this nation back together so that we can, as Americans, look at one another and say, okay, we disagree on this and that, but we certainly love this country. And I know there are Democrats out there who do love this country. Yes, we're seeing a takeover of the Democrat Party. And that is scary because when you start seeing Democrat socialists, those folks taking over the old Democrat Party, that's just pure communism. And that's what they're going to do to the party if we don't root this evil out.
Well, I hope Fetterman will change parties, as the rumor is that he's thinking about it. And I think that if he were to do that, that there would be other members of Congress that would follow on his heels. And I have said for the last 4 years on this program that I think we've got a world of hurt that we're experiencing right now, but that I truly do believe, and I believe that good triumphs over evil. And I think we're beginning to see the real meaningful part of that play out. And you asked if I had seen the election results. I worked on the election case in Georgia for 2.5 years with Bob Cheeley, who brought the case of Jeffrey Satir and Perdue, as in David Perdue, against the Fulton Board of Elections. I have seen the evidence. I've talked to the witnesses. I've played devil's advocate with the forensic accountants. There is zero doubt in my mind that 2020 was stolen in Georgia. And you and I do share one of the same monikers, and that is I read your WikiLeaks or Wikipedia page this morning, and you have promoted President Donald J. Trump's false claims of stolen election in 2020. Well, guess what? Patricia Murphy, the political columnist for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, accused me of having done the same. Will they issue a retraction now? Will they say that the President Trump did have evidence of election irregularities, and more than irregularities, just outright theft in 2020?
I don't expect an apology. And frankly, from many of these people, I wouldn't accept an apology. The CCP used media assets. We know this from the documents released, that they were using media assets. The CCP had media assets that they were using to spread this disinformation about elections. And they were using those same media assets to stoke the BLM uprisings. And it's really frightening. One of the reasons that I care so deeply about this issue is I worked 30 plus years in the media, and I walked away from my career. I walked away from a 7-figure contract as the #1 news voice, as the #1 news face and news name in the state of Arizona. I walked away from it after the COVID lies and after the 2020 election. I said, I cannot sit here night after night as they try to force me to read things that I know are not true. And I walked away from that. And so watching this all converge last night, and I had no idea that the CCP was as involved.
Yeah,
I knew
me
there
either.
was probably some foreign meddling. I didn't know it was to this level. And the surprise to me, although it's not surprising, is that the CCP was using American media assets to spread these lies and stoke all of this. So I'm really interested in getting names there. I want the names of the people in the media who have been behind this, who have been working against our country. And I bet you they're pretty nervous tonight. We noticed some of the big networks didn't cover it. That tells me right there's probably a few people at those networks who are guilty.
Well, you promised that you would come on today, but only for 10 minutes. We're 4 minutes over, and I want to be true to my word and not keep you here longer. But I do have more questions to ask you. Just two real quick ones. Do you think it's possible that the CCP could have been operating inside of our country to the extent that they were without the knowledge of the CIA and the FBI? I think we clearly know the answer to that based on the drop that we got from President Trump last night. How can that happen, and how can it be arrested, and can we eradicate the cancer that I believe exists inside of our own federal government?
There's a real effort to do that right now, and just trying to simply downsize the federal government is very difficult. I'm at an agency where I have worked to do that, worked to reduce the size of the agency, bringing 85% of the personnel. We did a reduction of force with 85% of the personnel, and the judge stopped us. These district court judges are doing everything to stop President Trump and this administration from right-sizing the federal government. The only industry in the world that hasn't seen some right-sizing or with the advancement of technology, sometimes you need fewer people. The federal government never cuts back. And this administration has tried. We've been stopped at every step of the way. I think the president is very, very focused on reducing the size of the federal government and reducing the bureaucracy. But it takes time. The district courts and these judges are trying to run the executive branch and stop us from moving forward. But the president is focused on making sure that he right-sizes the federal government. And it'd be nice to get some of the people who are corrupt out.
The district courts, most of whom Obama appointed, that are giving the pushback and halting the agenda of the duly elected president of the United States, I might add. Kari, I'm going to let you go. I don't want to. I hope you'll come back on and we can have a longer chat. I've always, every time I've met you and been with you, I've enjoyed your company, and I certainly have today. What's next for Kari Lake?
Well, I'm still working at the Agency for Global Media, and we are working to make sure that's running at a statutory level and not with absolute excess that we have been seeing over the years. And we're putting out an American story, and no longer are we putting out news that's anti-American, pro-Iranian regime, pro-Cuban regime, and pro-CCP, which is a novel idea, right? A government-run news agency should not be putting out adversaries' message. It should be putting out America's message. So I'm proud of that. I'm in the process of being confirmed for ambassador to Jamaica. And so hopefully in the next coming weeks, I'll be moving to Jamaica and working to do the president and the administration's work in the wonderful nation of Jamaica, where we're trying to protect Americans and really trying to level the playing field. We know that the CCP, if we're talking about the CCP, the Chinese have really moved into the Western Hemisphere, especially particularly close to us in the Caribbean. They've made very strategic plays right there at our front door, and it's very concerning. So we're going to take a look there.
I'm somewhat aware. I share your concern. Well, you just gave me a great idea. I got this little airplane, and I think Jamaica's about an hour and 20 minutes from my front door. Maybe you'll do another interview in person, and we could just bop on down to Jamaica.
That sounds like a plan.
All right. You heard it here, folks. We got her committed. All right. Thank you, Kari Lake. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and thank you so much for your generous time today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll get right back to the show after this brief word from our sponsor, Masculine Man Essentials. Look, most deodorants on the shelf are full of aluminum, parabens, and synthetic junk. Masculine Man Essentials goes at it differently. All natural ingredients, built for men, and it actually holds up through the whole day long. Whether you're at the office, at the gym, in traffic, or just getting home for the night, try Masculine Man Essentials. I've been using it, and I can tell you, it's the real deal. Head to masculinemanessentials.com, grab yourself a 2-pack or a 4-pack, use the promo code TRUTH at the checkout to save on your first order, and the link is in today's show notes. As you know, we don't put our name on anything that we haven't tried and believe in. So when I tell you about Nessa's Hemp, I want you to listen up. Nessa's Hemp is a Chicago-based company that makes hemp, and it was founded by Anessa. And what she's built is really something. We're talking about clean, high-quality hemp products with no gimmicks, just real ingredients, real transparency, with real results. Whether you're dealing with stress, sleep issues, inflammation, or you just want to add something natural to your wellness routine, Nessa's Hemp has something to offer you. Head over to nessahemp.com, that's N-E-S-A-S hemp.com, and check out what they've got. Use our promo code TRUTH for a discount just by being our listener. For 4 years, I've been telling you that I think this federal government is rotten to its very core. Last night, President Trump confirmed it. He dropped about 300 pages of formerly classified information that is nothing less than a bombshell. Not only did China meddle in our 2020 elections, but the FBI and the CIA knew that they were doing it, did nothing about it, except they intentionally did not tell President Trump. Well, it came as no surprise to me, and I don't think it came as a surprise to my friend Bob Cheeley, who was the lead lawyer on the case of Jefford, Satir, and Perdue against the Fulton Board of Elections, nor do I think it came as a surprise, perhaps, to Janice Johnston. She is a medical MD and a former member of the Georgia Elections Board. They join us here on The Truth today to unpack what President Trump laid on the American people last night. I thought it was historical. I thought it was earth-shattering. And I want to start by asking both of you, do you think that you will get an apology from Patricia Murphy and Greg, what's his name, from the AJC, calling you election deniers and spreading these false rumors that President Trump was cheated out of the 2020 election without evidence? What do you think, Bob?
Well, that's what I've suspected since I first saw video from State Farm Arena when they were pulling cases out from under the tables after they told everybody they were suspending the counting of the votes on the night of November 3rd, 2020, and sent everybody home under the false premise that there was a water main break, which was absolutely false. So I just wonder why the media never asked to see that water main break. And when you're talking about a water main, that's a 6 to 8 inch pipe going into a facility the size of State Farm Arena. And so ever since then, we've been battling Fulton County to have access to those 149,000 purported absentee ballots. And we got a court order on January the 6th, 2021, while all the things were going on in Washington. We had a local judge enter an order at our request to preserve all those absentee ballots and the envelopes so that we could do an audit. And then on May the 21st of 2021, he granted, after hearing testimony from our experts, he granted our motion to unseal the ballots and allow us to proceed with a plan to do the audit. However, Fulton County hired a criminal defense attorney, high-profile criminal defense attorney, to parachute in the case the next week, and he filed a motion to dismiss for lack of standing, just as the Democrat-controlled blue states had done in 60 some odd other lawsuits nationwide. And unfortunately, that judge reversed himself, and 3 months later, in October of 2021, he dismissed the case, saying that people in Georgia don't have standing to do an audit to hold government accountable.
He also found that candidates didn't have standing.
Yeah,
and if electors don't have standing and candidates don't have standing, who's left to contest a fraudulent or an election fraught with misdeeds?
Yeah, and it certainly turns what our founders of our Constitution and our country had in mind, is that government is there to serve the people, and these kind of lack of standing decisions are cowardly way out, I believe, and basically it says that the people serve the government.
Well, the disappointing, one of the many disappointing things to me is that the media continue to say 63 courts reviewed the data or the information and concluded that President Biden was the duly elected president. And it's just a lie. 63 courts threw the cases out on standing, and except for Brian Amero, and I think there was a case in Wisconsin, there were no evidentiary hearings on the 2020 election, to my knowledge.
Well, Judge Amero, who was assigned to preside over the case against Fulton County, he announced from the bench after hearing from our experts on May 21st, 2021, that we had established basically prima facie evidence, which is like probable cause, to have the ballots unsealed and examine those ballots and the envelopes. There should be a 1-to-1 ratio of ballots to envelopes. And, we had eyewitnesses who saw some of these ballots, like Susie Voiles, and there was photographs of those ballots, and many of those ballots that were stacked up on tables that Susie was pointing to in these photographs for Joe Biden had never been folded. They were flat and they were pristine. So we wanted to see those ballots. The Georgia Supreme Court agreed with us that we were entitled to see the ballots. And but ever since that decision by the Georgia Supreme Court, I believe it was in December of 2023, Fulton County has continued to put up one roadblock after another to keep us from looking at these ballots, that in spite of the fact that they shouted from the rooftops that this was the most secure and free election in the history of the county and the state.
Well, Dr. Janice Johnston was a citizen who became an activist, who I first met in Judge Amero's court when the case that Bob and Charles Bundren and Preston Halliburton were litigating went before Judge Amero. Dr. Johnston, your activism led you to become nominated and appointed to the state elections board, where you've served for the better part of 4 years and maybe longer until you recently stepped down. What did you think of President Trump's address to the nation last night? Were you surprised by what he said, or did it just confirm what you believed you already knew?
Well, John, thanks for having me on first. And yes, I did listen to the speech. And as I just told a group just a few minutes ago, the first listening of the speech I thought was interesting. But it was when I listened to the speech the second time, I played the whole speech back again and realized how important and impactful what President Trump was saying as he outlined the 5 areas of evidence and concern that he wants to address and investigate further. It is really quite alarming, and what I'll be most interested in, I know the DHS is going on public today with with some more announcements. And it will be interesting to review the documents and as they're released to the public and see what the findings are. But the alarming thing, as you probably all agree, is the intervention or hiding of these findings by our agencies, and did not share that with the president or other necessary parties, and certainly not the public.
Well, I don't know how you can conclude anything other than that they were in on it. 53 intelligence officers signed a letter saying that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. I mean, when you put all the evidence together, Bob, doesn't that make more than a prima facie case that there are elements within our own government that actively participated in the 2020 election steal, which I think we can now comfortably say without anyone saying that we're election deniers? I think we're truth tellers.
Well, I think that the FBI and the DOJ right now have all the evidence that they need in order to determine how all these pieces of the puzzle fit together. And, as a lawyer, my gut told me that when I watched, the State Farm Arena ballots being counted at 5 different scanners, they would scan one batch of ballots of 100 in one scanner and then take them to another scanner and scan them again. And so that's all been verified now that they were double counting votes.
One stack, I believe you related to me, was scanned 32 times.
Yep.
That's 3,200 ballots.
And there were
votes.
There were 17,800 and something votes that were tacked on to the total that didn't even have any ballots to go with them. So it was just, and they assigned about 13,600 and something of those votes to Biden. I don't care who wins. I just want to make sure that the process is legal and that there's no domestic or foreign interference. And I think that Dr. Johnston feels the same way.
Well, as do I. The franchise is the pillar of our republic. Without the franchise, we have no semblance of a republic, let alone a democracy. Dr. Jan, were there any omissions in last night's speech that disappointed you or that surprised you that President Trump did not talk about?
Well, John, at first, as I said, I thought it was more of a broad overview, and I did not know what to expect. I did not know if the president was going to be more specific and name particular states or particular jurisdictions or even certain people in his findings. But I think he gave the broad brush picture of what we need to look at further. And what he raised and what he's going to provide will only raise many more questions that need to be answered about what happened in 2020. But even more importantly now is what is happening in our elections today, or what will happen in our future elections. Whatever has been taking place, we need to know what it is and how it's happened and how we can stop it. So we will not have an insecure election, an untrusted election, and unreliable results, perhaps.
So
I never understood why the judge in Mr. Cheeley's case did not go right to the ballots, and I never understood. I have to this day don't understand why the state and the county and the judiciary has been so opposed to just simply looking at the ballots. If Mr. Cheeley's questions had been answered in 2021, as he had very diligently and prudently asked, we might not be here today scratching our heads and wondering still what went on and what's the conclusion of those questions. Why didn't they just open the ballot box and let Mr. Cheeley and his team review those ballots?
Well, speaking of which, I was privileged to be part of that team. I did not work as a lawyer on Bob's case, although I did stay up until 2 a.m. reviewing his brief before the Georgia Court of Appeals. I got tired and went to bed, but he and his fellow lawyers stayed up until 5 a.m. When I woke up, they were just having coffee, having slept through the night. So you worked really hard, Bob, to bring this case across the line. What do you think? I mean, Judge Amaro seemed to be doing the right thing. He was listening. He was attentive, as you pointed out. He ruled that you had made a prima facie case in May of 2021. What caused him to change his mind and so dramatically do a 180 just a few months later and throw the case out on standing? What do you think?
It would be total speculation on my part, but I know he's no longer on the bench. He's gone into private practice with a company as their general counsel. But I don't know. I mean, when I first saw his order, which was basically a 180, where he basically granted the county's motion to dismiss for lack of standing. We had shown, I thought, really well in our brief opposing that motion that citizens do have a right under our Constitution to hold government accountable and to examine ballots, particularly based upon the evidence that we had shown the judge that I've just previously alluded to, about these highly irregular and improper procedures that Fulton County had engaged in that looked like they were packing the voting box. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was getting pressure, from the Merrick Garland's DOJ to get rid of this case. It was one of the last ones still pending in the country, and to move on.
Well, I would tend to agree with you. I'm not sure that there wasn't direct pressure from some levels in the Georgia government hierarchy, which is kind of my suspicion, but regardless, it is what it is. So those ballots, those absentee ballots that Judge Amaro ordered be unsealed and allow your team to inspect, that the inspection never occurred because he would never provide the date, time, and place of inspection. But it's my sense that that has always been where the smoking gun really resides, and a whole lot of other places. But that would be the demonstrable proof positive that you might be able to unravel the riddle if you got to inspect those. Or now we believe in Quantico, Virginia. I was hopeful that last night President Trump would talk about the inspection of the absentee ballots. And once again, I was left mildly disappointed that it didn't become part of his speech. Your thoughts? Are we ever going to get to see those ballots and learn once and for all whether there was demonstrable fraud in those ballots?
I absolutely think we will. And I know that it's high at the top of the president's list of things that he wants to accomplish for the benefit of the country to secure our elections going forward. And, I, back when we were handling the case and we got that good order from Judge Amaro on May 21st, 2021, we had document examiners lined up, about 8 or 10 of them, to go through and make professional decisions about the authenticity and validity of those ballots. And unfortunately, Fulton County, refused to allow us to do it. And even after the Georgia Supreme Court ruled that we were entitled to do it, they continued to frustrate and refuse to cooperate. And the next thing they threw up as a roadblock is a huge, almost a $500,000 demand that be paid by the citizens to do the audit that the Supreme Court of Georgia had ordered be done.
Well,
John?
Susie Voy, yes.
Let me
Yes,
remind you, there are others that also want the ballots. The state election board requested the ballots to complete an investigation that had been incompletely investigated. And to the point that the state election board subpoenaed the ballots. The state election board has subpoena power and subpoenaed the ballots, which was, and the documents. And this was immediately met by legal opposition from the county to quash the motion, and a motion to quash, sorry. And it's been tied up in court, although the Judge McBurney said, indeed, the state election board has a right to get the documents and to review and complete the investigation. But we too were met with the roadblock of potential charge of $400,000, over $400,000, just to access the ballots, or maybe even a copy of the ballots, which is completely unacceptable. And
Bob, sorry,
yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Dr. Johnston. Does a respondent or a defendant in a lawsuit have any justification or legal grounds for demanding compensation for delivering evidence that's been ordered by a court?
No.
Have you thought about going back to the Supreme Court or to another venue, I guess maybe the Court of Appeals, and asking that they be ordered for the second time to produce?
Well, they don't have them anymore. The federal government has them now.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think they're gonna, if not, they've done so already. The FBI and DOJ, I'm confident, have probably concluded examining those ballots. They've had them since January, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a report coming out soon.
Well, I spoke to Kari Lake earlier today, and we talked about the frustration that I sense, and I'm sure that you all do as well, from the American people, that we continue to uncover evidence of these crimes and unethical, and in many cases immoral activity from people in high positions in government, and there seems to be a lack of accountability. Now, I've got all 300 or 400 pages of the document dump that President Trump allowed the American people to see last night. I haven't gone through even half of it, but I'm in process of. But it seems to me that this is evidence of direct involvement from Clapper, Comey, Brennan, and Christopher Wray. I'm sure there will be more. Do you think that we will ever see accountability from these people? Because I think do you share my view that, and I'll ask you, Dr. Jan, that this is worse than just electioneering? It seems to me that they were either enabling or working in collaboration with a foreign nation that was inappropriately, unlawfully meddling in our elections. To me, that is treason on its face. Shouldn't they be investigated for treason?
I think as the president said last night, he is directing further investigation, and that's to be determined. But it should absolutely be looked into. And if there has been meddling, or if there has been manipulation, or there has been interference, then people need to be held accountable.
I think that's what the American people are starting to wake up to, the reality of these things, starting with the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King and Building 7, Epstein, Butler, and then Charlie Kirk's assassination. Many people, including myself, believe that Intel's fingerprints are on all of that. And I've advocated for 4 years on this program that there needs to be a cleansing in America, that all the secrets need to come out and be revealed. Sunshine is the best disinfectant, and that we've got to restore this country to the moral high ground. Bob, what say you?
I absolutely agree. And I was invited in 2022 to meet with a small group of people who are these are lawyers, along with a special ops, retired special ops specialist, and he told us about going to Venezuela and finding the code writers who had written the software for these electronic voting systems. That Hugo Chavez initially commissioned them to do this so that he could stay in power, and then Maduro continued to use it to stay in power. So it's going to be interesting to see what Maduro may have agreed to confess his knowledge of after he was captured earlier this year and is now in jail in Manhattan. But I was blown away with what the special ops guys said about this was a global attack and manipulation by Venezuela, and the software that they authorized to be used, and that was being used in the United States, and this guy says that they could determine the outcome of an election by switching votes in small amounts in every county across the country, and so that it would not stand out and it would be almost impossible to audit. He said that the votes were counted overseas, I believe in Serbia, on Chinese servers, and it just doesn't smell right. I mean, why are we having our votes counted anywhere except in the precincts where the votes are cast? It makes no sense.
Well, if all of that together, when you put it together, it looks to me that it is tantamount to a provocation of war on our country. And I think it should be met with tremendous resistance. I have not until today gone so far as to say, even though my instincts have told me since 2020 that COVID did not happen by accident. It happened in conjunction with the 2020 election, as you will recall, and it really paved the way for so many of the things that allowed for election fraud to take place, like the drop boxes and like the millions of absentee ballots that were dumped on voters that never requested them, like me and my wife. We never requested an absentee ballot, yet we each got them in the 2020 election. And my instinct has told me that COVID was intentional. And I know that that is a strong leap of logic or faith, but when you look at all the attendant circumstances and the things that happened as a result of COVID, and you combine it also with the lies that we were told. Fauci told us that COVID originated in a bat cave 2 hours away from Wuhan. The lady who was a scientist at Wuhan, who was starting to talk about COVID, suddenly disappeared in the middle of the night and has never been seen since. And then Fauci also told us about social distancing and masking. And it was all just one narrative based on lies. Then the other thing that struck me pretty dramatically was that I've learned that Moderna worked on a COVID vaccine starting in 2015. Then when you look at how fast the pamphlets, the literature, the vaccination centers just popped up overnight, I've never seen our federal government move that fast on anything. I'm just saying, when I step back at 30,000 feet and look at it, it feels planned, orchestrated, and intentional. Do you want to call the medics now or wait?
Dial 911.
Yeah.
John.
Well, we'll see. I think that my belief, my hope is that, I'm sorry. Did you say something, Dr. Jan?
Oh, yes. Well, I would say, yes, dial 911. Call an emergency. This is critical.
For my mental health or for the nation?
For the nation, for elections.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. So,
one thing, John, let me also add, I was told by somebody in the administration, current administration, that they had figured out how the voter rolls were being manipulated in several Secretary of State's offices. And I know for a fact, I've got the name and of the person that was allowed to come into the Georgia Secretary of State's office in July of 2020 and was given unfettered access as an outside person, not hired or under contract with the Secretary of State's office, but to do anything that would benefit the Secretary of State. But this person was given access to the main voter registration list for the entire state of Georgia. And when asked what he was doing by some curious people there in the Secretary of State's office, he said that he was reviewing to find all the people who had not voted in the last two presidential election cycles. And turns out that it looks like he reactivated all these people, even though the people didn't ask to be reactivated. And there were several 100,000 people that fit that category. So we now know that he reactivated them all. He gave them new voter ID numbers. And who knows, he may have given them new addresses as to where they should have absentee ballots sent.
Like abandoned apartment buildings and homeless shelters, maybe?
Well, large apartment communities where it's hard to figure out who lives where. So I think that that's something that the FBI is really looking into in Georgia and also these other states. And I was told back in January of 2025 that they had figured out that some of the computer experts had figured out that that's one of the ways in which they were able to manipulate votes and cast votes in the name of people who may have died or moved or just become apathetic and didn't want to vote.
Wasn't that guy you're talking about in the SOS office from a foreign country?
Yes.
Do you remember what country?
I think it was Jordan.
And what about in the Fulton Board of Elections office? Didn't they have foreign actors working there?
Yeah, I think they had somebody from Haiti.
Yeah.
Who was not a U.S. citizen.
All right. So when we step back and we look at this, what does all this say about our constitutional officers in Georgia? Kemp, Raffensperger, Carr. I mean, surely they've got responsibility for this, don't they? And what does it say about them? And what accountability are they deserving of?
John, my let me say a few words. My concern is that over the last more than 10 years, there's been a systematic degradation of secure elections by passing laws that make elections less secure, that include things like extended early voting and absentee ballots that can be used with no excuse, and election days that don't end at 7 p.m. on election day, where ballots can be accepted after the end of the election. And this has been legislated and systematically changed to the extent that the United States of America appears to be almost like a third world country in the realm of elections. It's very loose, and the rest of the world looks at the United States with a jaundiced eye concerning how we conduct our elections. They're just too loose. So, and they're perhaps, according to the report last night, which is quite alarming, there are enemies from outside the U.S., but there are also enemies within the U.S. that need to be asked some hard questions. And we need to move back immediately to secure election standards. We need to know exactly who is eligible to vote for every election. That's an accurate and current voter roll. We need to know actually who votes in each election with a documented record of who is voting. I mean, a handwritten contemporaneous document in person. We need to have voting in person, and only rare, unusual exceptions for voting by absentee. And we need to have an accurate accounting of how many ballots are cast. It has to equal the number of people who actually have proven to come in and vote. So if you don't have that, you don't have an election at all. And that includes hand-marked paper ballots. We need to get rid of the electronic voting systems. They're proprietary. They are against Help America Vote Act standards. The voter can't verify that he's actually voted because there's a barcode or a QR code that's actually being used to tabulate his or her vote.
And that violates state law on its face, does it not? Doesn't the law say that an elector has to be able to verify the ballot that they've cast?
Yes, it's a federal law too. I mean, this is basic election conduct. And finally, there need to be real audits, not pretend audits or theater type audits. There need to be real audits that are conducted by independent parties. How can you audit yourself? How can a county audit itself, or perhaps even the Secretary of State conduct the audit of itself? You need somebody that's at arm's length conducting the audit of the ballots and the equipment and the process. Plain and simple.
Well, both of you have worked tirelessly and selflessly to help get the truth on the 2020 election and subsequent elections. And you've both paid pretty high prices, haven't you? Dr. Johnston, you were attacked, basically, that resulted in some high legal bills that you had to pay on your own, I believe.
Well,
Tell us briefly about your experience.
I'm just a little person. I'm not important. And yes, I was the subject of a bit of lawfare by the horrible thuggery group American Oversight out of Washington. And but I won the lawsuit, and no, I did not have to pay anything. But nevertheless, that's not the problem, is it? It's the process is the punishment, and yes. It took a lot of time and effort to prepare, but fortunately, I keep pretty good records. I'm an old doctor, so I keep good records, and so I prevailed. But other people have paid a much higher price. I'm pretty thick-skinned, and I have a strong ethical compass. even though somebody in the state filed, well, the Awful Group American Oversight and Kathy Woolard, from a previous chair of the Fulton County Board of Elections, filed an ethics complaint because I actually looked at President Trump at a rally. I think that's the silliest ethics complaint I've ever heard of. And the inspector general said, "Oh, that's an ethics violation." I think it's laughable.
Well, I would very much like you to come back on The Truth and take us through that someday when you have the time.
Right.
I know today is not the time, but Bob, you most certainly have paid both personally and
really has.
financially.
Yes.
Tell us about your being in this very exclusive club of the Trump 19 in Georgia.
Yeah, it was a shock. I was getting ready to fly to Alaska on a long planned fishing trip with my son, and I turned on the news in August of 2023, and I see that Trump has been indicted, and there's my picture. And I was like, what in the world? Why am I being indicted for just showing a desire to get to the truth by filing a lawsuit? But, it's just like the old infantry slogan that if you're firing over the target, then they're going to be coming after you. So I was firing over the target. I had secured by then a successful order to preserve the ballots and the envelopes, and then I had the case pending in front of the Georgia Supreme Court, which I won a few months later in December, where the court recognized that we do have standing as citizens to inspect ballots. So I know they came after me because they wanted to shut me up. And so I wound up spending about $1.6 million on lawyer fees to defend myself. And we, were successful in getting this Fani Willis disqualified in the appellate court for her, as the Judge McAfee found, she had a quote, odor of mendacity, close quote, which basically means that she's lying when she testified in front of him. And he did not find her to be a credible person. And she was financially benefiting from these prosecutions. A prosecutor takes an oath not to accept any financial remuneration except that which is authorized by law. Well, she was paying her boyfriend, her paramour, who was married to someone else, all this money, and he was in turn taking her on, I think, 8 trips in 9 months. So I don't know how many, hardworking, law-abiding DAs take that many vacations in such a short amount of time, other than Fani Willis. So,
did you mention the fact that she was paying him an exorbitant amount of money for the RICO experience that he lacked?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was totally unqualified.
It seems to me and others that the taxpayers of Georgia paid for those extravagant trips. And leading me to just ask, why is she still a member of the Georgia Bar?
Yeah, she's a disgrace.
Well, she's not. You and Dr. Johnston are not the only people that have paid a price. Rudy Giuliani, who tried to defend the president and look into the 2020 election, paid a huge price. They stripped him of his license to practice law, including family heirlooms and a whole lot of money. The thousands of people that were imprisoned as J6 prisoners, insurrectionists, who have subsequently been pardoned, but they'll never get those 3 years of their lives, their reputations, and the money that it cost them back. Many of them lost their families, and some of them took their own lives. I think it is the lowest part, possibly one of the lowest parts, certainly in the 20th, 21st century of our country.
I agree with that.
Well, I'm indebted to both of you for coming on. You're both welcome back anytime. Dr. Johnston, I'd really like to hear about your trials and tribulations with the American Oversight Group. And Bob, I'd welcome you to come back on anytime, and hopefully you will, because I think that last night was really, I have said this repeatedly. Our audience knows that I've said it, that I think that Donald Trump is very strategically and intelligently deconstructing the deep state. I think Russia was chapter 1 of the book. I think the 2020 election is chapter 2 of the book. I hope that we're going to get chapters 3 and 4 dealing with Butler and Charlie Kirk assassination in Utah. And I think both of you could be very valuable resources for our listeners. And you're welcome back anytime. And I just appreciate your coming on today. And I hope you both have a great rest of your weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
For
Just remember all this corruption and the people that are behind it. They intend it for evil, but God's going to use it for good.
You gave me a quote out of the Bible yesterday. I think that would be an appropriate place for us to end today. I was saying that we are in such horrible times and that our government is corrupt and we've got bad people that are trying to do evil within our government. And how did we get into this place? And you really kind of helped me put it into perspective. Would you mind repeating that if you can recall?
Yeah, Moses in the book of Deuteronomy was inspired, by God to lay out government and the way it should be structured. There needs to be a separation of powers for civil functioning of government. And, the United States founders relied heavily on the book of Deuteronomy to structure our separation of powers. And it's worked, it's got deep historic roots in the Bible, and we've got to fight like hell to make sure that these crazy left-wing people don't move us towards communism. I'll leave everyone with this thought that I remember when the Berlin Wall came down, and I don't remember seeing anybody from West Germany trying to climb over the wall to get to East Germany.
That's a very good point. And doesn't the Bible also require each of us as citizens to do our part in our civic duty in maintaining our nation and, in our case, its freedoms?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We've been so blessed to be born in this country. Had like a less than 1% chance of being born here, and just the reaction that you're seeing during the World Cup, people coming here from all over the world, they realize we've got something incredibly special, and we shouldn't take it for granted. And we got to do a better job educating our children as to how special this country is, and to protect it and to love it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And my brief message, ending message for both of you and everyone listening is to wake up, sit up, stand up, speak up, and never, never, never give up for election integrity, for this country, and for the Republic.
Those are sage
Amen.
words from both of you, and I really appreciate it. And I don't know two more hardworking, better patriots than the two of you, Dr. Jan Johnston and Bob Cheeley from the Cheeley Law Group. Again, thank you for coming on with us today. And that is the truth. I'm John Gordon, back after these words. It's delicious, it's nutritious, and best of all, no dishes. We're talking about Bogey's Beef Jerky, of course. Premium craft beef jerky that's taken off at the most prominent golf courses and resorts across America. Made for the turn, the road, or whenever you need a bold, protein-packed snack, Bogey's delivers the rich flavor and that premium chew every time. From smoky heat to Pineapple Express, try some Bogey's beef. They've got a flavor for every player. Bogey's Beef Jerky. Tee it up, tear it up, and enjoy.